Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the lovely New London Garde Arts Center. I am Tom Carruthers from the Connecticut Film Festival, and I'm going to introduce our esteemed guests, panelists tonight. Let's see, have I got them in order still? Okay. To my right is Phil Capobres, correct? Phil is the co-founder and artistic director of the S.E.N.E Film, Music, and Arts Festival. Phil was previously managing director and programmer at the Rhode Island International Film Festival. He also serves on the boards of the Rhode Island Film Collaborative and Rhode Island Citizens for the Arts. Phil currently works at Fidelity Investments as Director of Marketing Analytics. I think I should talk to him about investing my money elsewhere. To his right is Philip, another Phil, this is going to get confusing for me, Gilpin Jr., who is from the Independent Television and Film Festival, ITVFest. Philip is the Executive Director of ITVFest. He was born and raised in the Boston area. Everybody here is like into Boston sports, right? No? Okay, I'm sorry, because in my neck of the woods, it's the Mets and the Yankees. The further you get on this side of the Connecticut River, it's all, Boston sports. So after graduating from Boston College with degrees in physics and mathematics, and he's involved in television and film type stuff, he made his way out to LA, where he became a business affairs analyst at HBO. So growing up around the theater, working at HBO, as well as writing, directing, acting, and producing in short films, Philip has certainly seen the entire industry from all sides. A lover of B-town sports and cool Vermont summers, you're listening to that, ladies, right? Philip eventually found his way back to New England, where he could enjoy his hometown teams and the Green Mountains. An outside kind of guy who ironically spends 90% of his time working on his computer. Philip now he started an event on the West Coast, the ITVFest. He's going through a renaissance now at bringing the West Coast event to the East Coast and changing it from a celebrity focus to a more content focus. So the next ITVFest is going to be September 26th through 28th, right? Okay, our next panelist, Patricia Clark, to his right. Patricia hails from New Haven, and she graduated from Marist College. Trish started her production career at VH1, that's quite prominent, on the show 8-Track Flashback. She then worked on Legends, a series, and then later at the segment and associate producer for the 100 Greatest series. What's that, 100 Greatest Hits? Is that what it is? Artists, women,
songs,
songs,
albums.
Oh, so it's a 100 of everything. I got
100 of everything.
In 2000, she moved to daytime television and field producing for the Rosie O'Donnell Show, resulting in daytime Emmys for Best Talk Show. Most recently, she co-produced My Brother Jack, an independent feature shot in New Haven. Is anybody familiar with that film? Just came out a little while ago. Yeah, it's supposed to be great. I haven't seen it yet.
It's on CloudFest right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where is that? Okay, they're not here tonight. She served as first AD for the independent feature Broken Side of Time and co-produced the documentary A Dog Named Gucci. After a stint at development, event planning, and fundraising for various arts organizations, she returned to producing. In 2011, she became the producer of the 48-hour film project in New Haven, allowing the Elm City to become part of the longest-running timed film competition in the world. We're going to find out more about that in a minute. That's really interesting. Keith Larsen, to Trisha's right, has been an award-winning professional in the field of video production for over 2 decades. Keith is the founder and president of the former Connecticut Final Cut Pro Users Group. I'm not going to go over the acronym. What is it, CT?
FCPUG.
Something like that. Now called Production Con. The group was formed in 2003 as a resource for professionals and students and hobbyists to network and learn more about the digital cinema industry. In 2011, the group hosted a full conference and expo with 30 industry manufacturers and dozens of workshops and lectures by top pros from New York City to LA. So please welcome Keith, Tricia, and Phil and Phil. Now the way we're going to do this, some of you may have films that you want to submit or digital media content projects that you want to submit, like a web series, something like that. So you probably have a lot of questions. I'm just going to start off with a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the entire audience. We've got about 45 minutes for this, so I'll try and move it along. First of all, I'd like to start with Phil 1 to my right, and I'm going to ask all of you just to briefly tell us about your festival or your event. You know, when it started, basically what its mission, goals, and objectives are. You know, its reason for being. So maybe we could start with you, Phil.
Should I answer all of that?
Yeah, just throw it all together. Make it sound smart.
All right, so I'm with the Southeast New England Film, Music, and Arts Festival. We abbreviate Southeast New England to S.E.N.E, just to make it easier to pronounce. We started, we just had our 5th anniversary, so we're coming up on our 6th anniversary in April. We're the end of April. We are mostly in Providence, and we use one location in Warwick, Rhode Island. We are a festival that tries to combine film, music, and art into one festival, which is kind of interesting to do. We just didn't want to be just a pure film festival. We do a lot of music events. We have musicians from all over the country that apply to come with us. We have a couple of guys from New York that come down every year to play with us. So anyway, we're coming up on our 6th anniversary.
I mean, was there any particular mission behind it? Because I know you're with the Rhode Island Film Festival.
Yeah, I was with the Rhode Island Film Festival. We just wanted to do something different, so it started by myself, Don Farias, and Linda Dwyer.
Were you all three of you with the?
We all three were with the Rhode Island Film Festival, and all left for different reasons, and we're just trying to figure out what to do with our lives, and decided, hey, let's start a film festival.
So you got a pretty unique event with arts, music, and film.
Right. So we have a big art exhibit every year. We try to incorporate music as much into our festival as we can. Because we have film, music, and art, surprisingly, we get a lot of films submitted to us that have to do with music and art, which is great.
Cool.
We're not limited to music and art, but people see that and say, I have a film about musicians, I'm going to submit it. And so we get some really good films that way, especially documentaries on music and art.
Let me pass it over to Phil number 2.
Is that okay? I'm junior. I'm also Philip Junior if it helps. So you can just go junior.
Well, how do we know that? Anyway, go ahead, Phil. Give it a go.
ITVFest, the Independent Television and Film Festival, was founded in Los Angeles in 2006 by a husband and wife team of Adam and Jenny Tesler. And at the time, it was one of only 2 television festivals in the country that won. And soon after that, a couple months later, in 2006, the New York Television Festival started. The interesting thing that happened in 2006 was at the time, there was actually no legitimate major way for TV and web writers, directors, actors, and producers to get seen. We all know that there are a million film festivals in the world, but what do you do if you're on the TV side of things? So I was working at HBO at the time, and Adam and Jenny were up-and-coming development execs and producers in the TV world out there. We met it the first year. HBO ended up becoming a sponsor the following year. And actually, just to backtrack one second, the summer of 2006, believe it or not, 7 years ago, was when YouTube came out and was first launched. I know, right? It feels like it's been in our lives since, yeah. So it's really frightening. What happened was there was this huge question mark of what's going to happen with web, and a lot of people who were very web-based were like, we're telling you, give it 5 years. This is going to be a great place to find new talent and new content. And all the TV people were like, okay, yeah, see you in 5 years, and we'll see how it goes. Because at the time, it was just people on their, bad video cell phones posting really random web things, and nobody thought it had a legitimate business purpose. Those people were wrong. So as TV and web started to grow on separate tracks, what happened over the course of a couple of years there was they started to merge. So ITVFest incorporated web into it as well. It's got a really good success record with talent that wins. Some writers on the Colbert Report were staffed out of ITVFest. There were pilots picked up from NBC. People got deals with UTA. Really, really good history. But our purpose now is what's happening with this great merging in the industry between television and web. A perfect example is you have Kevin Spacey, who's a film actor, starring in a TV show that's produced by a web company that's now nominated for an Emmy. that people probably watch on their phones while they're on the train. So this unanswered question is where we live in that universe. And to wrap up the intro part, there's an amazing amount of uber talented TV actors, writers, directors, and producers that just don't get the chance to get seen because they don't have to be making feature-length films. This year we ended up accepting 60 projects, which is the most that we've ever taken. And actually we started folding in short films this year too, because again, short film content, what's happening with that, you know, you can watch it on iTunes and plug it into your TV and all of a sudden are you watching TV or are you watching a film? But I encourage you to look into what's going on in the TV world, because over the last 3 months, I guarantee you my staff and I have had the best television experience of everybody on the planet, because we've been watching all this good new stuff that nobody's seen yet. And our mission and our purpose is to really give these artists the opportunity and the light that they deserve to match their talent. So that's where we live.
Cool.
Yeah.
Trisha?
Well, I run the 48-Hour Film Project in New Haven, so that is part of the International 48-Hour Film Project. So in about 120 cities across the world, teams sign up, and on a Friday night, they pick a film genre out of a hat. They get assigned a specific character, a specific line of dialogue, and a prop, and they have 48 hours to make a movie. They have to do everything, and they have to hand it back in on Sunday night. And we screen it. We give out awards. We did it this year, the last weekend of July, and I am waiting for all the judges to submit their choices, and then I will have a best of and a screening, and a lot more to come. We're also going to be doing the 48 music video project sometime in October. So we do this every year. It's 12 years internationally in various cities, and this is the 3rd year that we have it in Connecticut.
Last but not least.
I can't stay awake for 2 days straight. This is just not anymore. 20 years ago, maybe. My group's a little different. These are all people that run film festivals, and I don't do anything of that kind. So, what I did in 2003 was I was a member of a lot of professional development organizations to that point. ITVA at the time and things like that. And I'd go to the meetings every month, and it was like, we sit around, we eat food, we talk, and then we watch somebody's demo reel. We'd go to a certain production facility and watch their demo reel. But nothing ever seemed to manifest. It just didn't seem to have any value to it, for lack of a better term. So I was out at the NAB show. Does everybody know what the NAB show is? National Association of Broadcasters. It's our industry's big, NAM show kind of thing. It's a big trade show in Vegas every year. And I remember talking to a lot of people who were working at several companies like Adobe and AJA and Apple. And later that night, I went to a Final Cut Pro user group event. It was their second one ever. Final Cut Pro was just starting to gain some traction in the industry. And I saw all these leaders from Boston, Chicago, Denver, Mexico even, were the same people that were on the show floor working for these companies. And I noticed at the time that they had this great kind of camaraderie. It was almost like when Steve Jobs started Apple. It was like, here comes the pirate ship. These guys are doing something different and fun, and they gave away $100,000 in raffle prizes that night, and all this kind of stuff. And I was sitting next to my friend Doug, who might even be in the room, and I said, when we go back home, we should do this. We should try to start one of these in Hartford or something, and then next year we'll be up here. And that's exactly what happened. So, I went home and I contacted the people in Boston, New York, met with them, and they kind of got me started and introduced me into this world. And what I wanted to do was just give more value. If people were going to take a night out of their time and go listen to a speaker or something, or go to an event, it should be something worthwhile. You should take something back from it, not just go eat a sandwich and watch somebody's demo reel. So you laugh, but it's true. And so I started bringing in talent from all over the place, and they'd learn some new trick in Final Cut Pro maybe, or something in After Effects, or both that night. And then at the end, we'd have a raffle, because I got these manufacturers stacking up to sponsor that would give me prizes to give away and things like that. So it turned out to be a big hit, I guess you'd call it, for a better part of a decade. It really did well. Kind of started running its course about a year ago, and noticed the attendance dropping and people just kind of getting fed up with it. But that was kind of the whole idea. It was just added value, So I just wanted to help people. I think that's the best way to say it.
Well, I have a question for you that I want to throw at you, starting down at your end. Was Digital Content Creators, which was the original name of the organization, was it originally designed primarily for professionals? You say students, but I know there seems to be a big focus on partnerships with educational organizations like the Education Connection up in Litchfield, Western Connecticut State University. And have those relationships made a big difference in the quality of your content? Are you going more towards a student focus now?
No, it was always an idea to blend everything. I used to be in higher ed, and let's face it, we all started somewhere too. We came out of college and what do you do now, right? So it was a way of getting students who really had a passion for the industry to meet professionals. And you could get this integration, and they could talk to each other on a peer level. And it really started to work, and I know Jay at the time right there was teaching at Eastern Connecticut State University, and they would bring a posse of students, and they ended up starting to go to the NAB show. I'd be out at the NAB show, and I'd get 20 Eastern kids come running up, hey, that kind of thing. So it always tried to bring everybody in, even hobbyists, people who were accountants by day, video nerds by night. So it was welcoming to everybody at all levels, and we tried to kind of gauge a lot of the presentations to be somewhere in that range. We didn't want to make them too techy, and we didn't want to make them too dumb either. So, and it's quite it's a shell game. It really is a shell game.
Have the partnerships with the educational institutions, though, like you've got a state university, and then you've got, I forget what they call them, but, with the Education Connection, have they brought a lot to the table as far as content, or?
Yes and no. The ones who get it do.
Yeah.
There are several institutions, we've had meetings there, and I always tell them, open it up to your students. Your video students should come to this, and it's free for them. And
because I know you were working with Matt Warwood, who's very dialed into all this.
Yes,
but
Matt Warwood's a godsend. That guy's awesome. But that's a whole other, what I mean? We could go down that whole other road.
He's moved on to University of Connecticut in Stamford now.
He has.
Yeah.
Could I interject for a moment?
Sure.
I represent AJA, which is a large manufacturer of solutions for video and digital imaging. And we took Keith on as a showcase for supporting the user groups all over the United States. Subsequently, we've expanded out to about 38 user groups that we sponsor, Keith being the first one.
Wow.
What we saw was this need for, in this relationship between professionals and students and hobbyists, it's a good venue to be there in support, technologically speaking, and also hear what people need and have to have. So it was a great venue for us. It was a great venue. Selfishly, it did more for us probably than it did for Keith, other than put some jingle in his pocket to keep the group going. But we subsequently, we're always there as far as in supporting the community. And it's a good community. It's a good way to tap into what's happening. And it's a good way to communicate with people what's going on, because you've lost that
personal connection.
You've lost that training ground, what the union used to provide. The apprentice, the assistant, the tradesperson, the journeyman. There's that training's not there anymore, and along with that training is the networking, the support group. I'm in trouble. I'm cutting a film. I'm doing a medical promotional piece, and all of a sudden, technologically, I can't figure out how to do this. Who do I turn to? So Keith provided that network.
Okay, so Keith, did you plant him in the audience for
No, I didn't know.
Keith owes me dinner then.
We were at a meeting together. I have a question for Phil 1 to my right. You're in a very, 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 very small state. Is it the small state? I think it is.
It is the small state.
Has there been any confusion with filmmakers who are unsure about which festival they should submit their film to, either your festival or to Rhode Island? I mean, you've got to be running into issues with that, no?
I think we're at different times of the year. We're in April and Rhode Island is in August, so I think a lot of it is, if your film is done in time, you submit to Rhode Island, or if Rhode Island rejects you, you try us, and if we reject you, you try Rhode Island.
So Rhode Island doesn't have an exclusivity like Sundance or something?
As far as I know, we will show films that have played at the Rhode Island Film Festival, so we have no requirement as far as exclusivity. So Yes, no problem. I remember though when I was at the Rhode Island Film Festival, people used to confuse us with the Newport Film Festival. So there's a small state, you know, and people do confuse us. Yeah.
The yachts are a little smaller.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Phil Gilpin, I have a question for you. What brought you back to the East Coast? Is there an ITV event that's still on the other coast, or are you basically kind of did you start from scratch again because you had to build an audience? How did you make that move? And also, why such a remote location like Wilmington and Dover?
What are you talking about remote? Everybody's there.
To have your event.
Nobody's ever heard of it. I know, it's amazing.
Well, I have. I drive through there all the time.
The brief history of it is, like I said, it was started in 2006 in Los Angeles, and AJ and Jenny were running it, and it grew like wildfire. They had maybe a couple thousand people the first year. By 2009, it was at the point where it was completely out of control, and they had thousands of people showing up every day, and they had something like 1 million hits online just following it because it was the #1 place to get your TV stuff seen. In 2010, 11, 12, what happened was, for some personal reasons, they ended up outsourcing the production of the event, but still maintaining ownership of it, because technically it's a 501c3 nonprofit. This has always been a labor of love. This is not a money-making machine. This is run by people who absolutely have a genuine passion for what's happening in television and web, and they just want to give artists a way to be seen by the world. And what happened in 10, 11, 12 was this group came in and they had a different concept for what it should be like. And it kind of started to go a little sideways, away from its original mission in terms of being content focused, and started getting a lot of very popular culture and publicity, kind of YouTube of the hit week kind of focused. And in 2012, last year, when the 7th one was over, I called AJ and I said, hey, what's going on with ITVFest? And he's like, I'm not too sure. It's kind of in the wind. This contract's up. Jenny and I, we have kids now. We've got better jobs. We can't really do all of this anymore. He says, what are you up to? I'm like, yeah, I moved out of LA and I moved into this southern Vermont valley, which is gorgeous. And, my family has an inn there. And what happened was I went back to help my sister get ready for the wedding. I ended up painting the building. And it started as a 6-week get out of the city, and here I am 3 years later.
Did you film that painting process?
No, but I should have. But actually, that was the best way to get known by the people in that town, is cut the grass in the front every day. Anyway, so I said to AJ, I said, but we're only 3 hours from New York. We're only 3 hours from Boston. We're in this range in New England where there's nobody else in this TV space other than the New York Television Festival. So I said, why don't you let me bring the festival here? And he's like, okay, how many people are in the town? I'm like, yeah, 900 or so. He's like, how many movie theaters? I'm like, none. It'll be great. I'm telling you, it'll fly. We'll have a great time. So he's like, all right, well, what do we have to lose? So I took 6 months and started raising the money. We had a bunch of big deadlines we had to hit. We got the sponsors we needed, and as of April, we were locked in and ready to go.
Cool.
Submissions were still coming in strong. We started picking up a bigger European contingent. We still kept a lot of the LA people, and the biggest question was, when you move from Hollywood to southern Vermont, do you lose the West Coast audience? And the answer apparently is absolutely not. They are screaming and yelling about how excited they are to get out of the city for a couple of weeks and come see southern Vermont. Especially, we planted it right at the end of September in foliage season. So, we're setting up these outdoor film tents. You're going to be up on a mountainside looking over the world, walk in, watch a couple of shows in a room like this, leave and see foliage again, and have a drink. And
cool.
It's really, anyway, the point of it was, it had always been known in the industry as the Sundance of television. So moving it to a remote mountain valley wasn't exactly too much of a stretch, considering the model has already been proven so many times over. Now it's just a matter of how many people can I talk to in a 7-day weekly period in New England to get them to know that we're here now, which is part of the reason we're here today. But I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to bring a renaissance to it, because the remoteness of it, just to hit on your last point, the remoteness of it adds to the exclusivity and the uniqueness of being content focused.
Yeah.
It's not a publicity chasing event anymore. It's truly about the artists, and the setting now fits that, instead of just being in a convention center or in a movie theater in the middle of LA, where when you walk out of your door, you trip over 5 film festivals every day. So that's the vision.
Yeah, it's interesting because with the Connecticut Film Festival, I always wanted it to be content driven. And, you know, sponsors were like, well, who are the celebrities who are showing up and stuff? And we've had our share of celebrities, but I still just want great content because I think, you know, I hate to say if you build it, they'll come, but I think you have great content, you'll get people who are ravenous, like your group of people are going to travel from all parts of the country or around the world, and they're going to go to Dover and Wilmington to check it out.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a great time, and they'll stay at Mount Snow or something and
Right.
drive down during the day to do stuff.
Yeah, this year
So
we're
it's
really
great.
focused on, I think this year we're going to get all of the people who truly love the art for the sake of the art, you know, having moved geographically. I think that next year we'll start getting more of the general public, oh, it's a great party audience, but I think this year is going to be the diehards, the people that are in this room, the people that are at conventions like this, who love the industry, who love to see what people are doing in terms of edgy new content. I think that's where this year's heart's going to be.
Yeah. And for Trish, I have a question for you. The 48-hour film project for New Haven is actually part of a bigger organization,
Right.
much bigger organization. And a couple of things. I was wondering, was there any reason why you and your associates didn't launch one on your own? You know, whether it's 48 hours or 36 or 24 or whatever. And have you found that there's a lot of value being connected to this large organization? Do they really support it a lot? I mean,
Well,
What's that been like?
what I call 48 headquarters, you know, in DC, started it, and the first year it was just DC them doing it themselves, and it's just grown every year. And I think being part of it, it just gives it a lot more legitimacy, because, I mean, I can say that, like, the winner of New Haven moves on to Filmapalooza, so they move on and then compete against all the other cities internationally. And then 15 of those films go to NAB and or Con. So
see.
if I can, you know, if you say I made a movie in 48 hours and it could be at Con, like within the year, that's an awesome thing, that like someone who's, you know, could be a weekend warrior, or it could be someone who's been in the business forever and just wants to like hone their skills, but they could get, you know, screenings that they could never have imagined just by, you know, making a film in 48 hours. And it's a lot of fun. And I hadn't thought about doing it on my own. You know, I actually heard about it through a friend who did it in Cleveland and said, you know, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this in Connecticut. And I got the newsletter and they said, oh, we're looking to expand in Hartford, is what they said. And I called them up and I said, I think you mean New Haven. And I convinced them they said, you're hired. That was it. And it's been a pretty good partnership. I mean, we went from the first year, they literally called me in February and said, okay, you can do it, start in April. And I was like, yeah, well, what's the last possible weekend, which is why we ended up in August. And, you know, I went from 9 teams the first year to 21, 22 last year, 32 this year. So, I mean, this year I had more teams submit the film on time than I even had last year. So I grow, you know, tremendously every year. And it's part of the group. Like, I mean, I get people from Rhode Island, I get people from, I go to the Rhode Island screenings every year, and I like to call it pimping myself, because I then get more teams by just showing up at other cities. And, you know, and I get teams from New York and teams from Massachusetts. And it's a big film community, and the 48ers are very supportive of each other, I find. And then they start making connections, and then, you know, can make more films, and I think that's a good thing.
well, now you have a competition now. Phil Gilpin, is yours a competition? Maybe I missed it.
It is.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Keith, you don't have any competition. Are you thinking of doing anything like that in the future for projects that are submitted to like digital?
No, that's just more, no.
How not
But
to
I have
insult-
partnered with film festivals in the past. The Greenwich Film Festival back in, I don't know when that was now. But they asked me to come in and set up like a techie workshop day, and I got Apple to come, and we set up a bunch of laptops, and the kids could make films right on the spot, like short little, we sent them out to do E&G packages or, you know, little music videos and things like that on the spot. So that was cool, and I'd be happy to do stuff like that, but no. Do you stay awake for the 48 hours, or do you just...
Actually, if anyone has a problem, they call the 48-hour hotline, which is my
Answering
phone number.
machine.
No, it's not my answering machine. So
Muted phone.
I am up, it's funny, the team members are like, oh, it's 48 hours, we're so tired. I'm like, try 2 weeks. That's what happens.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly, right.
It's a lot longer when you run the whole thing.
Yes.
So Phil Capobres, how many categories do you have? You have competitions.
We have about 20 different categories
Holy
for
cow.
jury awards. So, best feature, best short, best comedy, best, we have a bunch of different categories. And then in each of those categories, we hand out audience awards after the festival. So we hand out a lot of awards.
And just to throw something out at all, how has the economy affected your running in the last 2 or 3 years? I mean, I know it's affected me, but...
Our festival? Or
Yeah,
any
just
other
throw it out to
festival?
anybody there. Anybody want to comment? Have they had trouble?
The economy definitely has hurt sponsorships. Like you said, it's hard, especially if you don't have celebrities. And we are a content-driven festival. We haven't really even looked at trying to get any celebrities to come. But so our even my own company, Fidelity, has kind of cut back on sponsorship, so that's kind of hard. But as far as attendance is still fine. We haven't had a problem with that.
How about you, Phil?
The greatest thing that I've seen in terms of the economy having an impact, and this may seem ancillary until you really think about it, but the amount of, how do you put it nicely, the amount of non-passionate artists have dropped out. The people who are just doing it as a hobby, the people
Right.
who were just there for the... So the people who truly meant that, yeah, I'm going to produce an entire half-hour television show on the 5 cents I found in my couch and my neighbors. We've seen a lot more of those, and the quality actually increased. It's been this weird inverse relationship there, because you don't have everybody in the space who's like, yeah, I'm making all this money, and it's 2007, and life is great, and I'm going to take a week, and I'm going to go make a TV show. So all those people dropped out. So there was this weird culling of submissions more than anything else. In terms of the audience, we just moved 3,000 miles. We have no idea what to expect, so we'll see. We'll see which way that goes.
How about Keith and Trish? Has the economy affected you? I mean, Trish, you're pretty new.
Well, I mean, it's still pretty new, but I think I've found more along what Phil was saying. Like I've grown each year, but and I think I've gotten better quality
Yeah, the
each year
talent's-
too. The talent
yeah.
is just like raised, and
Yeah.
I think it is people that do it for the passion. And I think, and I mean, my audience is really it's the people who made the films and their friends and family. It doesn't expand too far beyond that. It's a little bit of the New Haven Yale crowd that happens to be walking down the street and seeing the screening, but it's mostly the people that are involved.
I think the hard economy causes everybody to take a gut check, and they end up focusing on the things they truly only want to focus on, not the extra
Yeah.
stuff. So it's been an interesting.
How about you, Keith?
Oh yeah, it's definitely hit me. Just to piggyback quickly on the festival thing though, I know a couple of pro friends of mine participated in your festival a few weeks ago, and that's because they were so slow. It was summertime and it was dead, and
Right.
really talented people that wanted to keep their production chops going and had some clever ideas or something, so that could be part of it too. For me, yeah, I mean, it completely, from 2008 to now, it's been a horrible struggle to get sponsorship. With the exception of the big conference we did, and I kind of borrowed your idea, how you said New York's 3 hours away, and Boston. I always thought, I go to these New York trade shows and they're dead. They're really underattended compared to LA, Vegas, and those things. And I thought, they're making the mistake here, because when they have a little small-sized trade show in New York, they're not going to get anybody from Boston to make a 5-hour commute to spend half a day at this thing and drive all the way back. I thought if you put it in Hartford, right in the middle, it's perfect for everybody. And so that was the thinking, and the sponsors really got on board with that thinking. So that one was kind of an exception to the rule. But I have had, right now, having that event in the fall with Skills 21, and boy, oh boy, it is. I'm hoping I can pay my instructors. It's going to be very, very close. They want to throw product at me now. They don't want to give me any cash sponsorships.
Yeah, cash is
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
It's we started out as the Bethel Film Festival in 2004, 2005, and once the tax credit went into effect in 2006, I thought there was this need to have this statewide event. So, we're doing about 130 to 150 days and nights of film screenings and educational events throughout the state, because I thought it would be something cool. Nobody was doing a statewide event, make something really unique that differentiated. And you know, we were doing fine with sponsorships and cash because we had all these assets that we could monetize. And then, you know, like everybody, you know, the money started to drop away. And so I just thought, well, maybe it's time to tighten things up a little more, throw out things that aren't working as well, create some new assets or some new events. And, you know, then when the economy starts to turn around, get more money. So, I mean, we're hurting just like everybody else, but
It's the big city thing too, you know, a lot of them say, oh, we want to help you, but, you know, we're committed to Boston, or we're committed to this thing in New York, and it's, okay, so, you know, we lose.
so I'd like to open it up to some questions in the audience, any kind of question. We'll do, are there microphones to pass around out there? Runners with
We
mics?
have an
We got this
extra
one
one
right
over here.
Just bring them up here, like the Bob Barker.
Or
Come
just
on
yell really
down.
loud so it'll
Yeah.
be picked up, and we can repeat the question maybe? No, but,
I have a question.
there you go.
Trish, is there a process in choosing the prop, or is it just, you just give them whatever?
I get assigned those things from 48 headquarters, so they give them to each city pretty much the day of, so I get it about Friday morning, and then I seal it in an envelope so that I can open it up Friday night. So I don't know how they come up with the line or how they come up with the prop. I mean, all the city producers can throw out suggestions. I don't know if they get taken or not, you know. But if you are a city producer for 5 years, your name is the name in some city. So my character name this year happened to be Steve Nash, and he's actually the Toronto 48-hour film project producer. So, yeah, not the basketball player though, although that joke was in some of the films. But yeah.
There's a question right there.
Yeah, Trish, could you give us a sample of what props were used last year?
Last year, well, this year the prop was tongs, and last year.
Thongs?
Tongs.
Oh, Tom.
Come on, Tom, it's a family show.
Gosh, what was the prop last year? No, I can't remember. An automotive part last year.
No, anyway.
Anybody else? Oh, right over here.
Can you give us a hint about the 48-hour music video project?
Well, we know who everybody likes in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can give you a hint that it'll be sometime in the fall. I don't have the exact weekend yet, but I'm thinking probably late October, so it's before the holiday seasons really hits. And in that vein, on Friday night, instead of picking a genre out of the hat, you pick the band. So what happens is film teams will sign up and bands will sign up. And the band, may not necessarily have any input into the video. It's the videos being made for them, but they'll get a video out of it.
Can I ask a second question? Cool. Okay, because it's music, is there any age limit?
There's no age limit at all. It's just teams sign up.
Like younger kids, it's fine? Okay.
Nope, and in fact, like this year, I had some junior high teams, but I clearly had some grade schoolers this year, and it's open to anyone who wants to join. There is no age limit for too young or too old.
So where and when should we look for that?
Just look on the 48-hour New Haven website, which is www.48hourfilm.com, and then there's a page for each city. So just look on New Haven, and we'll have the music video stuff up soon.
Thank you.
You have like 5-hour energy. Red Bull as a corporate sponsor. You should
There's
do something.
the gentleman right in front here.
Here, this one?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Phil Jr.
Yes.
Who are the type of sponsors that you went for your group? Yeah, I don't know.
For this year?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, huge change. We didn't go after any industry sponsors. We went entirely regional and local and non-industry. The main reason for that being with only having the 6-month window that we had to completely rebuild this Phoenix from the ground up, we had to kind of go wherever it was. And there's an economic renaissance of sort happening in Vermont where the local towns and municipalities are handing out cash to people who have really great economic development ideas. So when you walk in and say, hey, I've got this festival that spent 7 years in Hollywood, it's not an easy sell, but if you work at it, you can get it done. So we went entirely local. And the other reason for that is we didn't want to scare the non-Hollywood world around where the festival is located out of it by thinking that it was an exclusive event. I am trying day in and day out to tear down that exclusivity wall that the public sometimes feels when it comes to festivals. They think that they walk down the street, they see people with lanyards around their neck, and they go, oh, I'm gonna watch, you know, I'm not welcome. Or, and
I thought that was a cool factor.
you know, so, and with us being so geographically isolated, you have to actually want to drive to get to us. You will never find us if you do not take a couple hours on Google Maps and figure out who we are. So
Don't use Apple Maps.
yeah, no. Just a side note, my house in Dover, if you Google map it, actually is located in a river. People stop there and they look for the inn, and you're like, no, there's no building there. Anyway, so we're bringing in music stages, and we're bringing in car shows, and we're bringing in all these arts groups to make it, you know, special effects teams, and we're trying to make it a real family-friendly atmosphere, as well as being a edgy, gritty, you know, really, how do you put it, cutting edge festival content-wise. So, yeah, but a lot of the economic choices we made were dictated mostly by the geography.
Okay. How many submissions have you had for the television viewing and so forth?
Yeah, that was our first big hurdle. We looked and we went, okay, you know, we usually get 200 to 300 submissions. There's usually 300 to 400, 100 of which show up unpaid, and they don't not even have labels on them, and you're just like, I don't know what this is. But we usually get 2 to 3. We hit 176, so we were almost right there, which was the sign of, all right, let's keep this motor running and going. Typically, out of the 200 that we get, we accept 30 to 40. The quality this year was just so beyond phenomenal in all the categories that we had to take 60. We had no choice not to. We could have taken upwards of 70, but it was starting to get out of control. So yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, so you took 60, but what are you really looking for?
Well, I'm not looking for anything. I'm not on the selection committee.
But what is the committee looking for?
Raw talent. You know, if there's a project that has a terrific actor, but the writing and directing's okay, it'll probably get taken. Vice versa. If there's a show that's just so well written, but you're like, hey, if a network picked that up and recasted it, you know, being TV and web based, we're not constrained in like you are in the film world, where your film is your film is your film. You can't, you know, usually go back and recast it. With television, it's more about concept. You can take a pilot, and many pilots have been recasted before they go on air. So we have that leeway to go and work with what we find to be, you know, something that we think the world would get excited about if it was on TV every night.
But a lot of things changing as it relates to monetizing. If anybody at the panel can answer this question, how do you think crowdfunding is going to change the industry as a whole? I'm a financier by definition. So when you have people like ourselves here that are so passionate about doing something, does it change the content? Do we have the ability to now change the industry as a whole?
I'm just going to jump on that one real quick. We're so interested in getting the same answer to that question that we are crossing our fingers, waiting with bated breath right now on the CEO of one of the major crowdfunding companies to come and participate this year. He is so interested in answering that question for the public that he's considering changing his entire schedule around just to come visit us for a day. So you're not the only one who's wondering that. And I know this, nobody really knows. And it's still being figured out. That's my take. Maybe you guys have the answer.
Well put, perfect, yeah.
Our festival just gives money to filmmakers who are crowdfunding, so I have a question. Maybe we should start asking for some money back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anybody else?
I have another question.
Oh, okay.
Phil, when you started to think about what you wanted to, when you got together with the concept of having people come to Vermont, small town of Vermont, did you have to speak to the city at all to try and say, hey, I'm going to have people come to this event, and it could be 3 people and it could be 3,000 people, and is that okay?
Yeah, actually, I don't know of a city in Vermont. But
I think Bennington would question that.
Burlington just got really angry. Yeah, actually, that was the first, harkening back to gentleman's question, that was the first place we went. And that's the question I get two questions every day when I walk to the post office. One is, how many people are showing up? And the second is, do I know anybody that's showing up? And the problem with that second question is, we only get basic channels where we are, so people only know like 3 television shows.
And they all have hockey on them.
Between the reruns of The Big Bang Theory and Duck Dynasty and something else, I think that's all Southern Vermont watches.
We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to get some information out to everybody about the events. For submissions and deadlines and dates coming up, why don't we start with Phil one? You said your next April.
Yeah, we're next April, so our early deadline is the end of September. You get a discounted fee for that. S.E.N.E, we also partner with the Rhode Island Comic Con, which is coming up in November, and also the Boston Comedy Festival, which is coming up in September or November. So if you submit your film to us by the end of September, it's also in consideration for those 2 events. Rhode Island Comic Con, they're expecting about a 30,000 attendance this year. So they started last year, they expected 10,000, they got 22,000. So they're hoping for about 30,000. So if you get your film into us by September, it might show there, and potential of 30,000 people. So if you got a great comedy film, the Boston Comedy Festival, which is a stand-up comedy festival, but we do a short film comedy night there. And our regular deadline is middle of December, and our final deadline is middle of January.
Phil two.
Yeah, we're just in production mode at this point. We gates open Thursday, September 26th, and it's 3 days of fun and craziness. We have 8 screening locations set up around the valley. Like I said, we've got music stages, we've got all kinds of things, stand-up comedy shows going on. But the one recommendation I would make is if you do want to come to this year's ITVFest, I would start planning now and start figuring out where you're staying and whatnot, only because the local area is so excited, local meaning within like an hour and a half drive radius for us, that it's going to be one of those things where if you don't make your reservations by like the middle of September, you're going to be driving like 45 minutes just to get into town every day. We're expecting a pretty decent sized turnout for us. We're expecting 2,000 to 3,000 people this year.
And Trish, you don't have submissions?
No, the teams have already done it this year because we had our filming weekend the last weekend in July. We will be having a best of and awards night in a couple weeks, but I don't have that date yet. You just have to keep looking at the website for updates. And then we'll also be doing the music video in October, so that'll be up on the website too.
And when is your event, Keith?
We're doing October 24th at Western Connecticut State University. It's a full day, but it's broken in half. The morning's kind of dedicated to 700 high school students. And the public can kind of weasel in, but I don't recommend it. It'll be a Zoom. And then we're just going to repeat the morning agenda. So we're going to have, half dozen vendors, Jay being one of them there, and is a little mini expo, and then we're going to have workshops on 5 or 6 of the hottest topics like iOS app development and maybe DSLR filmmaking, stuff like that. And we're going to leave it free to the public. So you can check it out at ProductionCon, 2 N's, just like that, .com. And it needs to be updated, so right now it's got the wrong date.
And the Connecticut Film Festival's next weekend festival is September 26th through the 29th, back to the scene of the crime in Bethel, where it started, so that's one of our weekend festivals. Our submissions run all year round. You can submit anytime you want. You can call me, you can go on our website, which is ctfilmfest.com, and that will link you to our other festivals, which is the Viva Cinema Latino Film Festival, which is in April 2014 at Wadsworth Athenaeum in Hartford, and Trinity, and possibly Spotlight Cinemas. Also, we work with the LA Comedy Shorts Film Fest. We have something called the LA Comedy Shorts East Coast Encore each year, and you can submit your comedy short through them. And new coming up in 2014, we're running the Bennington, Vermont International Film Festival. Yes, just got hired
Worlds
to
are
do that.
colliding.
So
You're seeing it here.
So I'm kind of like a film festival guy, So
you can say you were there.
So I want to thank everybody: Keith, Trish, Phil, and Phil.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll thank myself. Thank you very much. Thank you, audience.